Welcome to Between the Lines from First and Long College Football, our weekly best bets in college football betting. And now your hosts, Marcus and Mason.
What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. I am Marcus. That's Mason, co-hosting the show. As always, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It's time for our best bets. It's Between the Lines. It's our best bet segment brought to you every single Thursday, right around 8 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes we're a little late. Sometimes we're a little early. But you know we're going to serve it up for you the best we can. It's our best bets against the spread, against all the lines, the over-unders, all that stuff. Everything's fair game, quarters, halves, all that good stuff. Little more slim pickings this week, Mason, as we've got a lot of teams facing off against what I would consider to be lower level teams. But we do have some conference matchups with some tight spreads, and we're going to get into some of those. As we always do, we'll start off with the big matchups. But before we do, how you doing tonight, Mason?
Doing good, Mark. Looking for another winning week. I've been searching really hard. I'm in the weeds now, Mark, and I'm trying to push my way out. I can hear you on the other side there, but I'm just looking for that hole to get right through and get back into the clear. And I'm going to need a pretty big hole. I got 15 wins to make up. Not going to get them all in this week. I got to set my expectations realistically here. Just let me go +4 this week, and then let's get a good run going. That's what I'm hoping for. Closing out last week, I was 5-6. We had no locks together. I was 0-2 in our fights. So for the year, you're beating me pretty handedly there, Mark. 6-1 in our lock fights, and on the money line, I was minus 1.8 units. So for the season total, I'm 55-70-1. Our locks are 14-19-1. And like I said, lock fights, I'm 1-6 against you. And then on the money line for the season, I'm up 8.75 units total. Like I said, let's get four good wins here. Let me go +4 this week. And then let's kind of snowball into conference championships for 2 weeks. Give me a 3-week little chance here to get back to 500 and get the pot back even.
Yeah, it's called Operation Get Mason Paid on his college football bets, and it's going to be a multi-week operation here. But we're gonna get Mason in the positive here before the end of the season. That's our challenge now. I'm 59. I'm 59-51-1. So I've one push this year. And I was 4-5 last week and hit my money line win last week with Kansas over BYU. No, we both did on that one last week. So good calls there on the show. I really need to go back and add up all my money line wins because here in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've hit one every single week. I've hit at least one. So we got some streaks going, and the money line picks have been hot. They've been money makers, no doubt about it. So let's see if we can have us a good week here in what I think is a pretty slim pickings on the board. Let's jump into it, man. We're going to go, as I said, through our big games first, and then we'll make our way through, just opening up the board and going wherever we want to go. Thank y'all so much for watching. Hit that like button real quick and drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what games you're betting on this weekend. What is your single best bet this weekend? I want to hear from you guys. Because as I said, I got some picks I like. I just don't have as many as I normally do. So without further ado, let's jump into Between the Lines. Indiana and Ohio State, Mason. That one's kicking off at noon. The noon slate is just like the best slate of the weekend. This noon slate has got some good matchups, and I would even say that 3:30 slot is pretty doggone good as well. So it looks like the afternoon slots are going to be where the best games are. What do you think about this Indiana and Ohio State one? Do you have a play on it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are siding with Indiana on this one. This line, you can see our banner here, folks. This is what the line was at when we did our preview just a couple days ago, and it's now down to 10. Ohio State's getting 10 points here. So that makes me worry a little bit, man, that the public is all over Indiana on this one. The public's a little bit smarter than I give them credit for sometimes, right? So it's kind of backed me away from the line for the entire game. But I do think, and I really do like Indiana in the first half at +7.5. I think that they're going to be able to kind of hold serve for at least a half in this football game. They're going to come out the gate with some fresh plays after coming off of a bye week. I think Ohio State will be figuring some things out on offense as they're battling an injury on the offensive line with their center McLaughlin going down. I think that causes the Buckeyes offense to sputter to get going at first. Maybe Howard throws a pick early, trying to do too much with his arm because they're not able to establish the run game. Also, I think that this Hoosiers defense is legit, and I think that most of the college football world doesn't really think about the Hoosiers defense being what's gotten them to this point. A lot of people are looking at their offense and how efficient they've been on that side of the football, but I really credit Indiana's defense for what they've been able to do so far. Also, 62% of the money, like I said, is coming in on Indiana, so that's kind of scaring me off of the spread. I've got 2 picks in this game though, Mark, and I'm going back to the well here. I think this is the 3rd week in a row I've made this play, but Indiana in the 4th quarter +2.5 points this week. Indiana doesn't lose the 4th quarter. So if you're going to give me 2.5 points, I'm going to take it until they prove to me that they can't win in the 4th quarter. Really like this play week in and week out. I really like this play if it's going to be a back and forth game, or if Indiana is having to play from behind late, or even if it's a blowout and Indiana is trying to keep this game close, keep it within 17 points or something like that to prove to the College Football Playoff Committee that they belong in the college football playoffs. This Indiana team, regardless of what the score is, they're not gonna have any sort of quit in the 4th quarter. Even if the 4th quarter is scoreless at the end of the day, that's still a cover for me. So I like Indiana +2.5 in that 4th quarter there. Little 2-for-1 special in that big game.
Yeah, I like that play for sure. I've got one play on this one, and I'm just going to take I'm going to take the straight up under 53 in this one. I like that it's over the round betting number of 51. I like that. And so I just, a lot of the things that you just listed, I think Indiana's defense has been overshadowed a bit with, by the fact that their offense has been able to put up a lot of points. But these games haven't been close, and that's not just from the offense. That's from the defense showing up and showing out. I like this defense, especially going up against an Ohio State offensive line that, as you mentioned, is now down their starting center. Now, with that being said, I was thinking about this today. Their center from last year stayed. So Ohio State's starting center from last year stayed on the team. He didn't transfer after McLaughlin came in. So I imagine it's going to be him stepping up into that role. Now, there's a reason McLaughlin was playing ahead of him, because McLaughlin is clearly a better player. And we saw Ohio State struggle a bit whenever they had to play, musical chairs on that offensive line earlier this season. And it took them a couple games to get adapted to that. We'll see. We'll see what that means for this football game. I think everything points to the under here. I like the defenses in this game. I think this is going to be an absolute slugfest. I think bettors were on the right side of this thing, betting Indiana and betting this number down whenever it was closer to 13 and 13.5. I'm shying away from the spread here. I don't like the spread on either side of this. I think there's too many variables here. We still haven't seen Indiana. I mean, it's not any of Indiana's fault, but their Big Ten schedule, the way it worked out this season, they've played 6 of the bottom feeders. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it works out like that. And we've seen teams have an easy schedule and go and win a national championship. So I'm not saying any of that stuff's off the table because of this schedule, but really, really need this win. And you talked about keeping it close, Mason. Maybe that is enough to get Indiana in the college football playoff. If we know anything about this college football playoff committee, they love good losses, right? So we'll we'll keep that in mind as we go into week 14 next week. We're running out of time here for the College Football Playoff Committee to make up their mind on who's in, who's out. This weekend is going to go a long way in determining that, because I think if Ohio State loses this one, they're going to be on the outside looking in more than likely with all the other teams in the Big Ten knocking on that door. But give me the under 53 here. I just think this is a defensive slugfest. I know Ohio State wants to run the football in this situation, and I think in the first half you're going to see that a lot. I think this will be really low scoring in the first half, maybe open it up a bit in the second half, but I still like the under at 53, especially with everybody betting it up, Mason. As you can see on the screen, guys, it was at 52. Everybody's bet it up. I don't like betting with the public. I just don't. They don't tear down buildings in Vegas and leave empty lots. They tear down buildings and build bigger buildings. And the way they do that is by getting 50% bets on each side of the bet. And I don't like betting with the public here. All right, let's keep it going. We got other big games to talk about. Ole Miss at Florida. That one's also at noon. You got to play on that one. Last we saw on the show, it was plus 9.5 Florida, over under 55.5. I know those numbers have changed a hair.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? The over under has stayed the same. It's still at 55.5. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can get an 11 out there. You can get a 10.5. You know, kind of shop around, I guess. Do your due diligence there. On this one, I don't think I have a play here, Mark. I don't really know how I feel about this, because I was hoping that the line would be up a little bit more. I was really thinking that Ole Miss would be favored by about 14 in this game. That's kind of where I have them. But to me, if I'm thinking that Ole Miss is going to win this by 14 and it's at 10.5, really, to me, 3.5 points is not enough of an advantage to want to bet that. So I'm kind of staying away from the spread there. Couldn't really find much on the over-under either. I think that there's a possibility here that Ole Miss kind of comes in and scores 40 on their own. And if that's the case, Florida at home, I like them to score 20. But then there's also the possibility that both of these defenses kind of bow up and the under hit. So I can't really find much value in this game at all, to be honest with you. Were you able to find anything, though, that I might want to jump on?
I'm going under on this one. I just go back and I look at the point totals for Ole Miss throughout the season, and you know where at times it has been an offense that's put up a ton of yards. They haven't been a team that's against decent competition anyway. Those first 4 games of the year, we kind of put that to the side, where they're beating everybody 70-0 or whatever. But if you look at whenever Ole Miss has played decent competition. And this Florida team's hot. Let's just be real. I don't think Florida's good, y'all. I don't think they're good, but they are hot. They've got some momentum. It is what it is. I like their defense to be able to bow up a little bit. I like Florida to be able to run the ball a little bit, limit some possessions for Ole Miss. I'm very interested to see as well this Florida defensive line getting after that Ole Miss offensive line, Mason. I don't think this Ole Miss offensive line is really that great. I just really don't. And the numbers show that. They're 80s, in the 80s in tackles for loss allowed, sacks allowed this season. Florida has shown a propensity to get after the quarterback here of late. And the biggest thing that Ole Miss did against Georgia that I felt like really affected the football game offensively for Georgia was they moved the pocket right back into Carson Beck's lap. Now, Georgia fans can say, it was a bad game for the offensive line. It was a bad game, but we've seen the Georgia offensive line have some issues, some cracks in the foundation throughout the season. Really has a lot to do with injuries, but everybody's dealing with injuries, and that's still, the facts are the facts. Florida has been better at protecting the quarterback than Georgia has this season. They've allowed fewer sacks this season. I'm interested to see that offensive line of Florida up against that defensive line of Ole Miss. I'm not saying that they're going to win that battle, but I think they're going to be able to protect enough for DJ Lagway to hit some explosive plays. I would like to see DJ Lagway be a little more efficient this week, but a guy playing with a hamstring that's probably black and blue, honestly, at this point still, right? I'm interested to see what version of him we get. Can he run? I doubt it. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to have my eyes on this game. I've got a kind of a funny feeling about this one that it could end up being closer, but my brain is also telling me that why in the world could Ole Miss not win this one by 14 points, just like Georgia did against Florida? Although Georgia did it in the fourth quarter. So, with all that being said, I'm taking the under 55.5. I think that this one ends up being finalized in the 20s. I think Ole Miss wins this one probably somewhat similar to how they beat Georgia. I think 28-10, something like that is pretty probable. I think if Ole Miss runs their program in this game, I think they score right around 30 points and they hold hold Florida right around a couple touchdowns or a touchdown field goal. So give me that under. All right. We got people in the comment section talking about the Indiana-Ohio State game. Here you go. Peanut Butter Posse. I really like Florida. Top 15 talent. Ole Miss getting too much hype for beating a Georgia team that was greatly affected by the rain for some reason. I forgot it was even raining in that game.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about that. There was a lot of drops, and I know that's what you're alluding to, Peanut Butter Posse. But let me tell you, Peanut Butter, as a Georgia fan, I'm not saying Georgia played a terrible game. That was Georgia's worst game of the season. There's no doubt about it. But Georgia has dropped the ball all season. Last week against Tennessee was the first time we've seen Georgia look like somewhat of the Georgia offense from last year, right? Georgia's number 1 in the country in drops this season out of 133 teams. So it wasn't necessarily just the rain. I mean, maybe that did have something to do with it, but I saw one ball go through somebody's hands and hit them in the face mask. I saw guys have balls going through their arms. Georgia wasn't ready to play that game, and Ole Miss was, and the better team won that day for sure. Ohio State going into the game arrogant and cocky. That can hurt you. Indiana has a bunch of group of 5 guys, but I think Ohio State will be surprised at the talent IU has. Thank you, Indy Nation, for watching. I think you see with Ohio State, look, this is like 5 or 6 noon games in a row for Ohio State. And I think you see Ohio State come out on the field, and I don't want to say lollygag around, but I think you do see them kind of play with their food sometimes. And I think we kind of saw it last week against Northwestern early in that game. And then all of a sudden you look up and this team, scored 21 points in just a few minutes. And this Ohio State offense, it can score in bunches. We know the threats that they have over the top. That's what I'm interested to see. Indiana hasn't played an offense like that, and I'm really, really interested to see how that works out. I know you guys are too. Everybody's so excited about that game. Brian said they probably borrowed the baby oil from Diddy. He had plenty of it, didn't he? 10,000 bottles of it or whatever? He had plenty of it, man. All right, guys, let's keep it going. I appreciate y'all watching. Thank y'all so much. Let's keep going with the betting show here. Thanks for watching First and Long College Football Between the Lines edition. SMU at Virginia. You got anything on that, Mason? I didn't really want to touch this game.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I feel like SMU is kind of poised for a pretty big game here, though. I'm taking SMU in the fourth quarter minus half a point. It's half a point, guys. Like, come on. I like SMU in this game. If the spread in this game is only 9.5, I think that there will be points scored throughout the game. I think it's because it's going to be a close game. So, in other words, I'm saying that, in every quarter, there will be points scored. I like SMU in this football game to win the game. So I think that SMU is going to outscore Virginia in the fourth quarter because of that. I hope that makes sense. It kind of makes sense in my head there. But even if SMU is up and they're parking the bus in the fourth quarter and run the ball 25 times against Virginia, I like them to still score, running the football. So, I think essentially SMU could basically play conservative this entire football game and outscore Virginia in every quarter, but specifically in the fourth quarter, especially if they need to come back or if they're only up by 3 points or something like that, then I think that they're going to be able to take advantage of a winded Virginia defense and outscore the Cavaliers in the fourth quarter. So give me SMU fourth quarter minus 0.5.
I like that. I think that's a good approach to this one for sure. Colorado at Kansas. This one is very intriguing to me. 3:30 time slot here, second week in a row. Colorado's played in that kind of mid-afternoon time slot, but this time they're going to not be quite as far out west. They'll be at Kansas, which will be at Arrowhead Stadium, the Chiefs Stadium, as the Jayhawks Stadium has been being renovated this season. Look, I'll be quite frank with you. I think Kansas is playing their best football right now. And it's not always pretty. It wasn't exactly the prettiest thing in the world last week. But they figured out a way to get the win. I don't think they're going up against quite as staunch of a defense this week. I know that they're not. And I think that if Kansas can get out here and play mistake-free football, I think they win this game. And I don't think it's, all that close. I think it's a touch. I mean, I say it's going to be close. It'll be one possession, but I think they can win this by a touchdown if they don't turn the ball over. Kansas should be able to run the football here. Kansas ought to be able to throw the football here. I don't see, I don't see this one where Kansas comes out of the game with only 17 points like they did last week. I don't see that. Now, Colorado, on the other hand, I bet on both of these teams last week, and Colorado totally exceeded expectations, won me money on my over last week in that game. The offense is looking spectacular. One could say that they're probably as hot as they've been all year offensively, scoring in the 40s the last few games. Earlier in the season, it was typically in the 30s most of the games that they played. So we've seen kind of a step up for both of these teams over the last few games. Colorado going on the road here, I think will be an interesting situation. Is it going to be some kind of big home field advantage for Kansas? No, not necessarily, but playing away is playing away. And I with Kansas getting the win last week, I think you can get some butts in those seats and maybe have some sort of home field advantage some kind of way. Give me Kansas on the money line here, Mason. I'm taking them plus 120. This is my money line pick of the week. Kansas hit the money line for me last week against BYU on the road. Why can't they do it this week at home against Colorado? Give me them Jayhawks, man. I'm riding the hot hand.
I like it. I wasn't as confident in Kansas in this one. After seeing what Colorado did to Utah last week, it kind of backed me off of the fade Colorado pick this week. So I'm going to go with the over 59.5 in this football game. I think this game scored in the 70s mark. Both of these offenses are playing really good football. I do think it's close. Vegas is telling you that this game is going to be close, favoring Colorado by only 2.5 points. And if this is a close game, if this is a shootout, that's exactly what I want, taking the over. Again, I think that this game is going to be more like 38-35. So in that case, I like the over by a pretty good margin here. And I was a little bit worried about it, honestly, after seeing Kansas last week come off. I know they came off of a slow offensive performance, but I like what they've been able to do in previous games. I think that was an outlier and a defense that was able to kind of take advantage of Kansas's offense and really in ways that I don't think that Colorado is going to be able to. I like Kansas's ability to run the football, and I think that they do it pretty well in this one. My only fear with the over is that Kansas runs the football a little bit too good, and the game gets shortened a pretty good bit. So that would be my only concern with the over, but I feel pretty good about it. Give me the over here.
Yeah, I want to see Devin Neal against this defense. The Colorado defense last year, much maligned. Obviously, it was terrible in most categories statistically. The defensive line has stepped up their play this year, and that's been the biggest difference for Kansas this season. For Colorado this season, not Kansas. I'm interested to see that defensive line up against Devin Neal and this running attack. Not to mention the quarterback can run a little bit too, although he is prone to injury. So we'll see how much Kansas. I mean, what are they playing for at this point? Why would you not run the quarterback at this point? I don't see any reason not to. I think it's just all hands on deck. You're just trying to do damage control at this point at Kansas and ride your momentum. And I think that Kansas is able to do that this week and upset the apple cart in the Big 12 conference championship picture. Speaking of the Big 12 conference championship picture, BYU at Arizona State. Arizona State is a 3-point favorite over the Bicycle College. So I bet against both of these teams last week. I was successful. The last 2 games we've talked about, I've bet on all these teams last week, one way or another, against or for. Last week, I bet against both the teams in this game, and I learned my lesson with Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona State has got the team to be able to BYU. They're pretty good at running the ball. They're pretty good at stopping the run. That is the first ingredient to being able to beat BYU, in my opinion. You've got to make them one-dimensional on offense. No one group or position group is so much better than the other for BYU. I like let's see. I like Arizona State -3 in this one. I had to make sure I had it written down and I didn't change my mind for some reason. I like Arizona State -3 here. Again, I'm riding the hot hand. This one's at home. Arizona State's got a lot to play for, and they've got him a good coach. I like Kenny Dillingham and everything that he's doing since he's moved over there from Oregon. This is an offensive-minded football team. I think they're able to figure out a way to score enough points in this one to be able to win. BYU's been in some low-scoring contests this season. I think Arizona State is able to hold BYU under 20 points this game. Again, I think this BYU offense continues to struggle. Look, we talked about it, Mason. You win a bunch of one-possession games, eventually you're going to lose some one-possession games. And I think this is another one here that BYU gives back after having a really, really good start to the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think it's lower scoring. I was trying to see if I wanted to go with the under as well. I'm gonna stay away from that, but I'm locking this one up with you, Mark. I've got Arizona State at -3 as well in this one. But I really like the underplay. I just feel like both of these offenses have kind of been all over the place. To see BYU put up 7 or 13 against Kansas makes me feel like the under is the right play. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the under here as well. I'm going to add it. I really like this play here. I think I'm actually going to come off of the lock with you and just take the under. Our locks have not been hitting, Mark. So as soon as you said Arizona State -3, I was like, I may want to back off of that one. Foolish betting advice, y'all, but I'm gonna stick with it.
Good, I'll win it now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I hope you win it now. Give me the under 48.5 in this one.
Okay, all right. I like that play. I going back and looking at the scores of these teams, I think under. If you're gonna hit it, under's the way to go. And I like that they're using a lot of half numbers this week, Mason. Have you noticed that? Tons of half numbers on the over-unders this week. So Vegas is saying F the BS. We're not taking no prisoners this weekend. You're winning or you're losing. No, there's no pushes here. And I think it kind of exudes some confidence from Vegas this week with these numbers. It seems like they've got a little tood to them. So we'll see. We'll see how rooted Vegas is on these totals as we get closer to kickoff here. All right, that's all of our big games that we talked about this week. Let's open it up, or we could, let's just open it up. Oh, you want to do Kentucky, Texas? You got one on this game, Mason? Kentucky at Texas?
Did I end up with one?
I didn't. Sure didn't.
No.
I just Kentucky's so damn inconsistent, man. I just don't know what to expect from week to week. One week they're giving up 300 yards rushing to Auburn. The next week they, take a 7-0 lead on Tennessee at Tennessee. Into the second quarter there. So I just.
I'm sorry. I do have a play. I knew I had one. Texas first half -10.5. I like the way that they come out hot. I think this could be similar to what they looked like against Florida, where they were up like 35-0 in the first half. I'm sure that it won't be that much of a differential. That was kind of a one-off and a game where I think Florida literally just did not even prepare for Texas. I think that they were looking at LSU, and I think that their win last week kind of proved that. But Kentucky in this spot, you do see some fight. I think you'll see both quarterbacks play. They really just don't know what they want to do on offense. Going up against Texas's defense isn't a great spot to get right for Kentucky's offense. So, but I do like Texas, and Texas has a weak schedule. They're kind of propped up in the CFP rankings right now because they're in the SEC. But everybody in the SEC is saying like, hey, how did you get ahead of us? Just because you've got one loss. They've got the weakest schedule of the top 15 teams in the SEC. And so I think that they need to come out and clear this 20.5 point spread. I don't know if they do that. That is kind of a big number, but I like them early in this football game to be up by at least 2 touchdowns headed into halftime.
Yep. I got no plays on it. I'm just gonna watch and see if I can somehow enjoy that one. Maybe it'll be a decent game, at least for some of it. Army at Notre Dame. Yeah, this is one that we missed. I don't know. My bad. You got any plays on this one? I don't have any plays here, although Mason, I probably should take Notre Dame. But
yeah, I'm taking Notre Dame. Especially since this crept down to 14. I mean, I don't know what people are seeing.
Y'all let me know in the comment section. Y'all let me know what you think about this game. I mean, it's pretty clear what Mason and I have thought about this game this week. I mean, we've talked about it a couple of different times. I mean, the Jimmies and the Joes, man. I mean, I love the story. The Army is, B. Browning in the comment section. Does anyone really think Army has a chance? And I wish I could say yes. I don't think they do. I just don't think they do.
And since Daly has had the injury, he hasn't been the same since he's come back. And a running quarterback against Notre Dame, come on, man. That ain't going to work.
Well, they see that every day at practice. They see the best running quarterback in the country do that every day at practice.
Yeah.
They've got a good look here. They have their own Bryson Daly on steroids, right? Yeah. So this just seems like a bad spot for Army. Well, it's a great spot. Let me just say that. This is a great spot. Pressure's a privilege. By the way, Mason, I think this one's at Yankee Stadium. We had somebody comment in the comment section this week. I didn't mention that on the show when we did the breakdown, but this one is at Yankee Stadium. That doesn't make a hill of beans to me. I don't think that makes any difference, other than, you're going to have some people getting tackled on infield dirt. That's always kind of funny to watch. But man, I love the Army story. I'm rooting for Army in this situation. I don't have any ties to Notre Dame here necessarily.
I mean, I'd give up $5 in a bet for Army to win here, like I'd be happy to see that.
Peanut Butter Posse said in the comment section, I think they do have a chance because I have no faith in Notre Dame coaching to prepare for an unconventional offense. And I do see what you're saying there, Peanut Butter. I mean, I do understand what you're saying there, and there is some validity to that. The coaching staff does get – when they lose, they get out-coached big time, like bad, usually. So I see exactly what you're saying, and Mason's talked about it a bunch. Todd Monken's brother is the coach at Army, and
well, it's his cousin. I did say cousin. Brother earlier in the year, but it is his cousin.
He's a Monken. He's got the Monken blood. And if we know his brother his cousin, Todd, is the best offensive play caller in America. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, he's calling, obviously won the 2 national championships at Georgia, and now he's calling all the plays for the Ravens every Sunday. I'm interested to see what Army can cook up here. You're right, though. Ever since Daly went out with that injury, man, it's been the point totals just haven't been what they were. Army was a little wagging there for a minute, betting on them.
Yeah.
Brian B says Navy runs a similar offense and Notre Dame crushed. Yeah, that is my concern right there too. Notre Dame's been in these spots a couple times this year, guys, where it's like they were like a couple touchdown favorite, and it seems like every single time they've just covered the spread.
Yeah, and a lot of turnovers in that game against Navy. I don't think you can count on that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another the turnover margin being heavily in Notre Dame's favor in this one too. That is also kind of what you see when these players are getting outmanned. You see a lot of turnovers, fumbles, playmakers. You see playmakers making plays, and when you have more of those guys on your team, there's more of an opportunity for that to happen. I could see this easily getting sideways on Army here. Unfortunately, I'm cheering for them though.
I'm cheering for them. I'm cheering for Indiana. I'm cheering for Army, and I'm also cheering for Oklahoma here. Alabama at Oklahoma. Last we saw a 13.5-point dog at home. We got family out there. It sounded like they were making their way to Oklahoma. I talked to my mom just a little bit ago. She called me right before the show started, and like moms do, right? Call you right before you're about to do something, and hold you on the phone for 30 minutes. But that's your mom, and you can't really do anything about it. Anyway, it sounds like they made it to Oklahoma, and I'm rooting for Oklahoma to be able to hold this one close. Do you got a play in this one?
Do I have a play in this one? I do. I'm taking Oklahoma plus 13.5. I'm gonna be sweating through this game. I know. 71% of the money going Alabama's way in this one. That's really what kind of perked my ears up. I said, okay, 71% is betting on Alabama, and it actually on this little ESPN college football pick'em I do, 83% picked Alabama on the same line at 13.5. So America is heavily on Alabama to cover this spread, and I remember a few weeks ago, we were looking at the Alabama offense and going, man, this is terrible. What happened since the Georgia game? And then you mean to tell me that in one game against LSU, everybody's forgotten that, and they're all of a sudden just a really good offense, and they can win the national championship. Bro, it doesn't happen that way. Like, it never happens that way in college football. It is you're never as good as you think, and you're never as bad as you think. I feel like Alabama is in for a little bit of a nail biter. I think they could win by 9 points, but I don't see it being much more than that. This is a really good Oklahoma defense, and let's remind people, Jalen Milroe ran for 180 yards in that game against LSU. He's not going to be able to do that against Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman coming up at safety. Like, I get it. I get it. Jalen Milroe's the best running back in college football. I understand that. That's what I think. But I feel like this Oklahoma defense is for real at stopping the run, if nothing else. I really like Alabama team total under as well, but I'm not going to do a 2-for-1 here because I do think that there is a potential. There's like a 10% chance that what we saw from Alabama's offense last week is replicatable or duplicable, whatever insert word there. But yeah, I like Oklahoma in this one to cover.
So here's the crazy thing about all this. So you're saying all the money's coming in on Alabama, and that's not really. I would have guessed that. But why is the line not moving? Because this thing opened at 14. I'm looking at it right now. It opened.
Yeah, I think I forgot to write it down. Hold on, let me pull this up because I think that there is some value on Oklahoma. Yeah, so you can get Oklahoma on FanDuel at -108, at Bally -104. So they've kind of given you a little bit of value.
They're trying to give you incentive to bet on that other side without moving the line. They don't want to move the line.
Yeah.
And that is a sign. That is a sign. I think you're on the right side of this, man. I mean, I'm just going to let you play it out, and I hope that you're right. Everybody in the comment section wants Oklahoma to figure out a way to at least keep this close, if not win this game. Peanut Butter Posse, I'm with you on OU. Milroe probably thinks this is a good spot to improve his draft stock by staying in the pocket. Well, Peanut Butter, you might be on to something there, because every time he does decide he's staying in the pocket, Alabama plays really close football games. And whenever he decides he's going to run, that's typically whenever they blow people out. So there might be something to that. Brian Browning wants Alabama to not be in the playoffs so bad he can taste it. Um, as a Georgia fan, I'll have to agree with you on that one. I would love for Alabama to not make it. I do not want Alabama in the 12-team playoff. That'd be a nice Christmas gift for me as well. So I'm with you on that. I could give a shit how many SEC teams make it. I really don't care. Does not matter to me.
Yeah,
I'm a little different in that aspect. I don't care about the conference winning games. I don't really give a shit about that.
and it's funny
right.
because we come on here and defend the SEC when it comes to the college football rankings. I don't do that because I'm some SEC homer. Like, I do that because I know it's right. I know what my eyeballs see, and the SEC is playing good football right now in comparison to the other conferences, and I just don't agree. Maybe it's because I'm a Georgia fan, so I'm living it as a fan, but I just don't agree with the college football playoff committee and kind of their way of doing things so far this year.
Yeah.
But I would love to just come on here and talk about how bad the SEC is, at least the other teams in the SEC, and how they don't deserve to get in. That would be great for me, actually. I'm not an SEC homer. I'll tell you that much.
No, I root for my dogs. The rest of them can go to hell for all I care. All right, North Carolina at Boston College. That's my next play, Mason. I like Boston College plus 2.5. I look, North Carolina's been terrible all year. Give me Boston College. I think they're a solid football team. They're playing at home here. They're feisty as all get out. I'm sure there's probably 10 million reasons to pick North Carolina in this one, and I think there's reasons to pick Boston College in this one, but I'm taking the home dog here. It's going to be absolutely freezing cold up there at Boston College. I'm sure of it. North Carolina, like I said, lost their starting quarterback the very first game of the year. That whole situation over there has just been really bad. North Carolina has been a complete embarrassment. And they figured it out here lately a little bit more. As the seasons went on, they figured it out a little bit more. I'll give them credit for that. But I don't think they're ready to go on the road and beat Boston College at this moment in time. So give me Boston College plus 2.5 in that one.
I like it. I'm going to stay home and take UMass at plus 42.5 at UGA. Georgia has been terrible traditionally under Kirby Smart at covering these big totals or
the
big
sob
spreads.
Story's already started. You saw Kirby coming out today with the whole sob story about UMass. You already seen that?
I didn't know.
Well, they fired their coach. And
yeah,
so
I heard about that.
Kirby in his press conference was all, that was my buddy, and I really like that guy, and he's a good football guy, and he's from a football fan. Just the whole, you know how it is. Kirby, these teams that they play, Kirby does not want to smash them. If Kirby could win this game 28-0, he'd do it. I swear to God, he would love to do it.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm at. It actually, you're giving me a little bit of pause talking about the firing. And I didn't realize he was so close to that head coach. Maybe now he wants to go out and prove a point. And they scored. It's 77-6. In the third quarter.
You should have kept my buddy on
the game.
Yeah, you should have kept my buddy on board. You wouldn't have lost his bad type thing. Is that what you're saying?
It's like Kirby just finds a reason every week to get his team up. But no, these players don't care anything about.
They just fired these kids' coaches. We're gonna go show them. Yeah.
they don't give a shit. And I don't think Georgia cares about this game one bit. All they care about is getting a win. They're not trying to run the score up. They don't care about a cover. This is the game that Kirby wants to get backups in for playing time as early as possible in order to keep them from hitting the transfer portal. We're at that time of the year where your cupcake game is extremely important to those freshmen that you brought on, especially if you're at Georgia and you were a 5-star freshman that came on, and you're trying to keep them on your roster and say, hey, this is the position you're playing for next year as that guy in front of you heads off to the NFL or graduates or whatever. So Georgia in the third quarter, I would be surprised if they'll probably have their starters out for the first drive, and then after that you're gonna start seeing them falling and dropping like flies. You might even get to see a 6th-year senior walk on get his little 10 seconds of fame, and That's the type of game you're going to see this week. And I don't usually bet against Georgia. I don't even like betting for Georgia just because I'm a Georgia fan. Sometimes, your emotions can get in the way. But 42.5, when I saw that, I thought, yeah, there's no way. There's no way that they're going to cover that. That's a huge spread there.
I'm going under 55 for a lot of the same reasons, Mason. I think Georgia probably gets up 35-0 in this one, and they'll probably end up winning it 42-0. It'll be 35-0. I've seen this a million times with Georgia, and I'm not going to keep going on and on about this because this is Georgia UMass, and this is as much publicity as UMass has gotten all year, right here on the First and Long College Football Show. But Georgia probably be up 35-0 halftime, and they probably score 7 points in the second half. Man, I mean that I've seen it time and time again. This will be a good opportunity for Georgia to work on their run game. They're going to be trying to run the ball, I think, a little bit with probably guys that you've never even heard of, right? If you're a real Georgia fan, you're going to get to see the depth chart this weekend. You're right. Absolutely. So I'm going under 55 on that one, and you've got UMass plus the points. All right, Arizona at TCU. This is a game that kind of caught my eye. Arizona going on the road. Arizona coming off of a big win last week, y'all. TCU's got a really good offense. They score a bunch of points. The over-under set at 59.5 on this one. But that number is very important, guys. 59 is a key number. 59 gets hit a lot in college football, right? It gets hit a lot. So they're giving you that key number of 59 in bets that they think it's going to go over. I'm going under. Give me that 59. Conventional wisdom here, and just your first initial gut reaction to this game is 59.5. Both of these teams with Teteroa McMillan and Noah Fafita on Arizona's team, specifically McMillan. If you don't know who McMillan is, T-Mac is the absolute truth at wide receiver, a first-round Sunday guy. There's no doubt about that. He's going to get his. He's going to have 150 yards receiving minimum in this game. Especially against a TCU secondary that gives up a ton of points anyway. But with all that being said, I just 59.5, man, that's a lot of points. I could see some turnovers in this game. I could see the defensive lines getting after the offensive lines a little bit in this one and maybe slowing them down just a hair enough to get this thing under 59.5. And like I said, I just love that key number of 59. I think it's a pretty good probability that it hits that 59. So give me that sucker. I'm throwing some money on that one this weekend.
Like it. I'm going to go Georgia Tech at home against NC State at -8.5. I like Georgia Tech in this. Yeah, I like Georgia Tech in this one. NC State, their defense has not shown up. Surprisingly, 59% of the money is coming in on the Wolfpack. Well, actually, that game's being played right now, and I meant to look at that. Georgia Tech and NC State. I meant to look at that. I meant to look at that before I gave y'all my pick on this one. To make sure it was still a good pick, but Georgia Tech is up 13-7 at halftime. So I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about that. But yeah, -8.5. I just need y'all to get 3 more points and then hold nice and steady. Yeah, but I think the general public may kind of misunderstand Georgia Tech in their win over Miami, and thinking that might just be a fluke. Not saying that Georgia Tech is better than Miami. I do think that Miami probably wins that game 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, something like that.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is a decent team that really benefits from Haynes King being back, and if he's healthy, I really like him in this football game. I would feel better about this pick if Jamal Haynes was healthy, but the offense was able to get a pretty good push against Miami without Haynes. He only had 3 carries in that football game. One of those did go for a touchdown, but I think they can win by 9 at home, no sweat in this football game. They're already up by 6, so I feel pretty good about this pick right now.
Well on your way. All right, look, this is my last pick, and then you just unload what you've got on us after this one here. I've got Wisconsin plus 1.5 at Nebraska. Guys, and real quick before we get onto that one, Peanut Butter Posse, is Georgia Tech a threat to Georgia if they play like they did last year? Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Here's one thing I'm going to tell you, Peanut Butter Posse, and then I'll go to my last pick, and Mason will give his last picks. The difference is the defensive line for Georgia is a lot better this year than what it was last year. It's played much better. And defensive line was a big issue for Georgia last year. And a lot of Georgia Tech's success against Georgia last year had to do with the fact that their offensive line was the best unit on their football team. And they were able to really kind of hit Georgia where the sun don't shine, for lack of better words. And I just don't see that advantage this season. Georgia Tech, if you don't know, Brent Key was an ex-offensive lineman at Georgia Tech. And typically, whenever you've got a coach that's, a linebacker's or he's an ex-linebacker or ex-offensive line, they tend to gravitate towards those position groups. Georgia Tech has got one of the better offensive lines in the ACC. And so their running attack with that offensive line, it's one of those teams that can take possessions away from you, right? You're not going to get a ton of possessions, and you're going to have to play offense efficiently to be able to cover a spread against Georgia Tech or something like that. So long form, but short answer here, Georgia Tech is a threat. But if I was going to pick Georgia Tech to win one of those suckers, I think it would have been last year. And it's been so long since Georgia's lost to Georgia Tech, man. I mean, it's been a long time now. And so, well, it was Kirby's first year at Georgia was the last time. And so, with that being said, and Peanut Butter Posse, I feel like Tech is better than they were last year, and Georgia a little rusty in comparison to last year. Yeah, I think Georgia Tech is probably a hair better than what they were last year. I think that's a true statement for sure. But like I said, the weaknesses that Georgia had last year, Georgia's whole scheme and the way this team operates is totally different than last year. So Georgia, I think, is probably not as good this year on offense as what they were last year. I don't think that's a stretch. I think we can all see that. But matchups wise, it works out better for Georgia, though, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but that was one of those games that McConkey and Bowers were not in at all. And I think you saw an offense try to figure out that what life looks like without Bowers and McConkey, and we've seen them continue that search all season long this year in trying to find an offensive identity without those two players that are doing really good things in the NFL right now. Which so they're kind of proving why they are so sorely missed for Georgia right now.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, and it is at Georgia. It's in Athens, Peanut Butter Posse. He asked if it was in Athens, and yes, that one last year was in Atlanta at Bobby Dodd.
And next year it'll be in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, that's
Georgia
right.
Georgia Tech sold that. I think they're getting wasn't it like $10 million to play it?
Georgia Tech is selling their home games to Mercedes-Benz Stadium for $10 million a pop right now.
Yeah.
That's the state of affairs at Georgia Tech. They would rather not have the recruits and everything. I don't even understand. I can't begin to understand that. I guess a lot of those recruits can, since it's so close, they can figure out a way to get in the game, and there's not a lot of travel and things like that, I guess. But the whole point of having home games, or a big point of it, is to host recruits, which Georgia Tech desperately needs more than anything. So interesting stuff there for sure. All right. My last pick, my last best bet of the week. I've got Wisconsin plus 1.5 at Nebraska. This is a field pick, guys, and here's the downside of this pick in my eyes right now. Nebraska's coming off of, Wisconsin is coming off of an emotional loss. But couldn't you say that about Nebraska as well? Nebraska, I feel like, is in a kind of a situation now where here they are on the doorstep of By the way, Turner Field is Georgia State Stadium now, Peanut Butter Posse. Turner Field got sold to Georgia State in Atlanta. But anyway, as I was saying, Wisconsin is coming off of a tough loss there. They thought they had Oregon right where they wanted them. Couldn't figure it out there at the end of the game. Oregon's able to squeak by, but all the pressure's on Nebraska here. All the pressure's on Nebraska trying to get that 6th win. How many years in a row now is it? They're stuck on 5 wins. Unbelievable. I just think they're cursed at this point. I mean, I'm half-heartedly joking about that, but boy, this team sure does seem snake bit as far as trying to get to the postseason. And that's what Nebraska needs more than anything. I like Wisconsin plus 1.5 here. I think there's value there, and I think Wisconsin's got a really good chance to win it.
Yeah, just for the record, they've had 7 years in a row so far, with 5 or less wins. If they do it this year, it'll be 8 in a row, which is crazy considering how much better they are this year, really, as a program, as a roster. It just doesn't make sense. Snake bit is the only way to really kind of sum that up. Since you brought that game up, I'll go ahead and give you one of my money line sprinkles. I'm taking Wisconsin on the money line there at plus 115 at Nebraska. It's a vibes pick. I'll leave it at that. I don't feel extremely confident in that one, but I like the way Wisconsin's playing right now. And getting rid of Phil Longo only helps, I think. I don't think he was great for this team offensively. While I do think he's a decent play caller, I don't think he was the right fit for Wisconsin. So I like the trajectory of Wisconsin right now. I think that Luke Fickell will get this team trending in the right direction heading into the offseason, which are becoming more and more important each and every year with the transfer portal opening up. I think that they'll be kind of on the right side of that. Speaking of a team that desperately needs to get on the right side of the win column here, heading into their first official, full length offseason under this coach and Jonathan Smith, is Michigan State. I've got them at a 13.5 point favorite at home against Purdue. I like them in this slot. I think that this is a get-right game. They've had 3 weeks in a row of losses and not really looking particularly great in those 3 weeks. Prior to that, they looked pretty good for a team that's completely rebuilt under a new coaching staff. This team desperately needs to finish strong heading into the offseason with some momentum. I know that Purdue does too, but Purdue straight up just doesn't have it, y'all. They absolutely don't. I like what Michigan State does on defense. I think that you got some really good players there. Aiden Childs, I think, is going to end up being a really good quarterback when it's all said and done. And of course, who doesn't like Nick Marsh? Nick Marsh is one of the best receivers, probably the most underrated receiver in college football, considering what he's doing as a true freshman right now. He looks absolutely amazing, incredible. But yeah, I think that those two connect for a few touchdowns in this one. And I like Michigan State pretty big at home, in front of the home crowd. It's probably going to be their last opportunity to host recruits in a Big Ten game. And I think that they want to go out there with a bang heading into the offseason, like I said. My last pick before I rattle off my last 3 money lines, LSU minus 7.5 over Vandy. Despite what the Alabama game showed us, Baton Rouge at night is still a tough place to play. The crowd will affect this game more than any crowd Pavia and the Commodores, this Commodores team has faced all year long. To be fair, I don't think that Vandy has been good recently, or has been this good recently to warrant a night game for any team, let alone LSU, who seems to get 5 night games every single year. But the Tigers offense is due for a big outing in this one. I think that we get that here with a strong performance by Nuss. I kind of feel like betting on LSU is like a YOLO play. Like, you don't know what you're going to get really with this LSU offense. So I'm kind of betting on them to be able to hit some shot plays over the top. and score quick. I think that's kind of the play here at -7.5. I'd love to get this at 7 or 6.5, but I do think that LSU is going to be able to win this one by at least 10. So give me Baton Rouge at night. And then I've got 3 more money line plays. So I mentioned Wisconsin over Nebraska. I've got Maryland at home versus Iowa. Iowa's on a 5th string quarterback with a defense that isn't playing as good here recently as they were at the beginning of the year, partly because their offense is playing so terrible. So if you're giving me Maryland at home plus 205, that's a really good value. And I think that this is a Maryland team that can be sneaky at times, and this might just be a good play for Maryland, a good matchup for Maryland, I should say. Also, Auburn. Auburn's got Texas A&M at home. Texas A&M is only favored by 2.5 points. So what is Vegas telling us there? 72% of that money is coming in on Texas A&M against the spread. I think Auburn's the best 4-win team in the country, and there's potential for an upset here. Vegas is telling us that with the way that the spread is set up, and they're telling you to pick Auburn in this one. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick them to win the game outright. Mike Elko told us himself that he's looking ahead to Texas. I don't know if you heard that, Mark, but he had sort of a Freudian slip and said that the only game that we're focused on right now is Texas. And he's like, I mean Auburn. It's just like, okay, dude. That? I think Mike Elko.
Oh, boy.
He was in one of his press conferences, he said that the only game we're focused on right now is Texas. I mean Auburn. So yeah, they're overlooking this game, I think, and it could come back to bite them. Those are like famous last words in college football.
Auburn has been one of those teams, man. If you look at them statistically, they have not been that bad. They just figure out ways to shoot themselves in the foot over and over and over. Their offense that was about the best I've seen their offense look last week, although they were playing no one. But
right.
But yeah, I hear you.
You get an offense in a rhythm like that, though, and sometimes that can carry over against better opponents too. I think it was a pretty important little bounce back game for that offense there, because I mean, you look at what Cal is right now, and they only put up 14 points against Cal. So it's not always just about who the opponent is for Auburn. I think that they can get this offense going potentially with a good week last week, and maybe they found something there. Last play of the week for me, I'm taking Indiana. I've been on them all week. I got to stick with them, and at plus 330 on the money line.
Going money line. Gotcha.
Yeah, on the money line. I like it here. I like the value. Obviously, there's a chance that they don't cover this, they don't win. There's always that chance, and especially when they're heavily, when Ohio State's heavily favored, the real opportunity for them not to hit this one. But at plus 330, that's you're getting 3.5 times what you're putting in. That's a pretty big win, and I think for that value, I like the play. Again, totally accepting the fact that they probably don't win this one, but if it does hit, it's a pretty big win. So I'll take that. I like them to be able to be competitive in this football game, more competitive than most games you would see a 330 point money line hitting on. So yeah, give me the Hoosiers. And I just want them to win on top of that. Noon game at Ohio State too. I like that. I'm glad it's not a night game.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's when you get the wackiest games is at noon. So that's what you want if you're Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm rooting for the Hoosiers, no doubt about it. All right, guys, that's it for tonight's Between the Lines show. We're ran a little bit over, but we had all you guys chit-chatting with us in the comment section and hanging out with us, and we certainly do appreciate that. And enjoyed chit-chatting with you guys as we always do. Y'all hit that like button on the way out real quick. We're going to be doing our reaction show this weekend per usual. Come hang out with us for the reactions, and then what's coming Sunday. We'll jump right back into everything. It'll be an updated top 25, and we'll be looking into the next week's matchup. So no rest for the wicked here at First and Long College Football. Come join us. If you hadn't hit that subscribe button, I hope that you'll consider doing that real quick. But definitely hit that like button for us. And come on back now, you hear? Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate it, guys.